Today, we're diving into a wild corporate drama that feels more like a TV show than a court case. It's a true story from the Federal Court of Australia about a CEO hired to be a hero, fired in just 3 weeks, who then sued his company for wrongful dismissal, and he won. But here's the kicker. The court awarded him $0. Let's get into how that's even possible.
So our story kicks off with a pretty classic setup, right? You've got a mining company, Dover Castle Metals, and it's in total turmoil. So they bring in this seasoned executive, Ryan Mount, to be their white knight, the guy who's supposed to come in, clean house, and save the day.
But just 21 days into his one-year contract, poof, he's gone. The board fires him. Just like that, the white knight gets tossed right out of the castle.
Now, Mount is convinced he was fired for doing the right thing, so he takes the company to court. He lays out his case, he presents his evidence, and believe it or not, the court actually agrees with him on a key point. The company was wrong to fire him the way they did. Sounds like a clear victory, doesn't it?
Well, not so fast. Despite technically winning his case for wrongful dismissal, the judge awarded him exactly $0 in damages. Nothing. Zilch. Not a single cent for all his trouble.
And that right there is the central mystery we are going to solve today. How is this even legally possible? To get the answer, we've got to rewind and look at this company, which was, frankly, already a complete mess.
You see, before our guy Ryan Mount even shows up, Dover Castle Metals, or DCM, was already in deep trouble. It was just riddled with internal fights and some pretty serious allegations of mismanagement.
And this conflict was personal. Ryan Mount was brought in by his good friend, a major shareholder named Mr. Perdicaris. Their plan was to take on the company's old guard. These are the directors Mount would soon accuse of some really bad behavior. So the stage was set for a massive showdown before he even had his first day in the office.
And get this, before he even officially starts, Mount goes to inspect the company's mine and he is absolutely horrified by what he finds. We're talking open mine shafts just left there. A gun safe in an area where alcohol was allowed. I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster. So, from his point of view, he wasn't just fixing a balance sheet. He was trying to protect people's lives.
The entire court case really boiled down to two completely opposite stories about Ryan Mount's actions. Was he the hero he claimed to be, or was he a villain in disguise?
And here they are, the two competing realities the judge had to pick from. On one hand, Mount claimed he was a classic whistleblower, and he was fired as payback for exposing fraud and dangerous safety risks. But the company? They painted a much, much darker picture. They said he was a Trojan horse, sent in by his friend Perdicaris to cause chaos and stage a boardroom coup.
And Mount, he came with receipts. He had 2 super detailed whistleblower reports that he sent just days into the job. He had emails telling the mine to shut down unsafe operations. His argument was really simple. Hey, I did my job. I pointed out the problems, and they fired me for it.
But DCM's counterstory was just as juicy. They claimed all that whistleblowing was just a smokescreen. The real plan, they argued, was for Mount to stir up trouble, making it easier for his powerful buddy, Perdicaris, to take over the whole company. So the firing, they said, wasn't retaliation, it was self-defense.
The fate of this entire case, everything, would ultimately hang on what happened in one single, incredibly dramatic meeting on March 31st, 2021.
Okay, so according to the company's directors, this is what went down. The meeting starts, and Mount's friend Perdicaris demands 2 other directors get out. Then, 2 large, intimidating, tattooed men walk into the room. They literally stand over the directors, who are then escorted out. And while all this is happening, the new CEO, Ryan Mount, allegedly just sits there with a wry smile on his face. It sounds like a scene straight out of a movie. So this was the million-dollar question. Who was telling the truth? Mount and his friend swore up and down that this story was a complete fabrication, that those men never even came into the room. But all the other directors told the exact same terrifying story. The judge had to figure out who was lying.
And after hearing all the testimony, Justice Katzman delivered an absolute bombshell. She believed the directors. She found that Mr. Mount had given false evidence to the court about the most critical event in the entire case. And with that one sentence, his credibility was completely shattered.
All right, so now that we know the judge basically thought Mount was lying about that whole boardroom showdown, we can finally solve the mystery of the $0 award. And the legal logic here is just fascinating.
So here's the most important point. Because the judge believed the boardroom coup story was the real reason he got fired, Mount's whole whistleblower claim just collapsed. The company successfully argued they had a believable, non-retaliatory reason to let him go. In their eyes, they weren't punishing a whistleblower. They were stopping a coup. But, and this is a huge but, here's the legal twist. The judge made a very careful distinction. While the company believed Mount was part of a coup, they couldn't actually prove it with hard evidence. So firing him without that proof was still a technical breach of his contract. That's his win. The reason he got $0, though, comes down to a legal rule called mitigation of loss, which basically means you have a duty to try and limit your financial damages after something like this happens. And here's the final brutal math. Mount was owed about $255,000 for the rest of his contract. But after getting fired, he was a real go-getter. He went out and earned around $400,000 from other consulting jobs. Because his new income was way more than his lost salary, his actual financial damage was zero. The law doesn't exist to punish the company here. It only exists to compensate the victim for money they actually lost. And in this case, he didn't lose any. So, after all that, what can we take away from this incredible story? Well, this case gives us some really powerful lessons about the difference between being legally right and actually walking away with a win. For employees, the big takeaway is that whistleblower protection isn't some kind of magical shield. If your employer can point to another believable reason for firing you, your claim could totally fail. For employers, the lesson is just as important. Suspicion isn't proof. Firing someone without solid evidence can land you in a very expensive legal fight, even if you ultimately don't have to pay damages. And for everyone, this case is a stark reminder that a legal win can feel pretty empty when it's financially worthless. It really leaves us with a final, thought-provoking question, doesn't it? After all the time, all the money, and all the stress of a federal court case, what does it truly mean to win when your victory is, in financial terms, worth absolutely nothing?